5 o'clock. Appreciate everybody on KTIK. However, you're accessing the program, radio, streaming, website, all good. 208-424-9300. Bronco Nation, call and tell us how Maddux Madsen is going to handle the next two defenses he faces, because they are 1-2 in the Mountain West this season. In just about any meaningful category, San Diego State is number 1. Fresno State is number 2. So how is Maddux Madsen going to handle these defenses? Prater, in an interesting stat, if you look at the 4 games Boise State has played in league, not one of those 4 teams is currently in the top 5 for overall defense in this league. So the doggy, we talked about it. They played all 4 teams that are going to remain in the Mountain West. They've got those Schmohawks out of the way, 4 for 4. But none of those teams are a top 5 Mountain West defense. This Fresno State that's the task Mad Dog has Saturday. And then after a bye the following week, there's San Diego State. How's the doggy going to handle these next 2 defenses, man?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's kind of a frightening question as we head into a Halloween weekend in terms of how he's going to handle that. You look at San Diego State on paper, it's one of the most dominating defensive papers that I've ever seen in my entire life of covering college football. The numbers that San Diego State are putting up right now against not the greatest competition, their real identity will come out over the course of the next month. But right now it's very scary. So Maddux Madsen needs to be spectacular. I mean, for me, it all starts with him being spectacular against Fresno State on Saturday and getting the confidence and not going into that bye week wishing you had a game, going into that bye week thinking you're pretty damn sweet, you're pretty damn cool because you just had a great game against Fresno State, and having that confidence, because I think a lot of it for Maddux is the confidence. And if you played poor against a decent defensive team in Fresno State, even though statistically they're number 2 in the Mountain West, then you're going to have a rough 2 weeks mentally. And then you're going to go into that San Diego State game and they're going to just beat the crap out of you. So I think he needs to be spectacular against Fresno to get the mental game going. We can pick apart the certain things that maybe San Diego State or Fresno State, where they're maybe vulnerable a little bit on defense, although I don't see much from San Diego State. Fresno State might be just a little bit more vulnerable, and Maddux has to take advantage of that.
You know, one of the things that we talked about earlier in the week was the home road splits.
Yep.
And how Boise State was a lot better at home than it was on the road. And Prater made the point that, well, while that might be true, the quality of the opponent has been much lower at home. And so when you look at the disparity in the defenses compared to even Fresno State, who's coming to the Blue on Saturday, New Mexico, as you said, Ballgame, New Mexico and UNLV outside the top 5. UNLV's 11th in the Mountain West in total defense.
Yeah, they're horrible.
App State's middle of the pack in the Sun Belt, and obviously Eastern Washington's a Big Sky team, and they're at the bottom of the Big Sky. I looked. So this is a big step up in terms of the quality of home defense that is coming to the Blue. And I think that that's something that we need to consider as well here, is that even though Fresno State is a heavy underdog in the game, they're bringing a pretty good defensive unit to Albertson Stadium, one that's better than all the other 4 defenses that have come to the Blue.
Madsen's faced Fresno only one time. It was a game almost 2 years ago to the day in Fresno that they lost. And Prater, you will remember this was the infamous Talon Green is our starter.
Yep.
He played the first snap of the game. One snap. He was out, and Mad Dog came in, and the doggy ended up, he didn't get credit for the loss because he didn't start the game. That's how it goes, apparently, in most situations, except Kellen Moore. Anyway, but yeah.
That was the 23 game, right?
Against Fresno? Yeah, they lost 37-30.
Yep.
Madsen completed just 52% of his passes, guys, but he threw for 258, had 1 teeter, 1 pick, and his best game ever on foot. He had 61 yards rushing with a touchdown. I don't know if you remember that teeter, too. It was a highlight type of play, his touchdown there. So he's had some success against Fresno. I know it's not the completion percentage he wants, one of the lowest of his career in a game, but he did have some decent yardage numbers, and that was Andy and Bush that year. And anyway, I don't even know how many 1 reps he had that week, if it was Talon, and then he put him in after the first play.
I think there's a possibility for Madsen to exploit Fresno State just a little bit on defense. And I'm not exactly sure. I was very curious about this number, and I didn't really know where it came from. Fresno State's middle of the road they're number 2 in the league when it comes to total defense, but they're middle of the road in terms of their pass defense. Opponents are completing 63% of their passes, which is decent, but they've given up 15 passing touchdowns. Only one other team in the entire league, Utah State, has given up more passing touchdowns than Fresno State.
Okay.
So I think Fresno State, and that's kind of why I talked about the third down opportunities as well earlier. Fresno State's a little bit vulnerable on third downs. They're a little bit vulnerable in the pass game. And I think if Madsen can establish that run, keep ahead of the chains and sticks, as now we start to talk like coaches, and just convert third downs and pass when he can and create those opportunities, I think that's going to create the momentum that he needs, because he's going to need that momentum going into San Diego State. And their numbers across the board are number 1, and they're just phenomenally scary.
It sucks, too. Madsen isn't 100% healthy. He's not. That ankle is not there. He still walks very gingerly. Practice around the building. He takes certain precautions for it. He's not 100%. Spencer Danielson talked about this. He talked about Fresno State's defense. And here's what Coach D says about this D, number 2 in the Mountain West.
They played well in every game they played. They've I really like what they do defensively too. I think there's similarities to us and them. But first off, very, very sound. I mean, obviously Coach Ed's defensive guy. They've got a great defensive scheme. They got really good football players too. I mean, I don't really see a hole in their defense. It's not like you're sitting there and like, well, their front's not, across the board, they've got really good players that did a good job with the guys that have been there, returning starters, and they did a really good job in the portal. So they're sound. They play really hard. They create turnovers. And you're not gonna get cheap ones on them. They're not gonna all of a sudden not have somebody in the gap or cutting guys free. And they also got a really good third down package. You don't want to get to third down on this defense. They're gonna make it really, really hard in the front end and in the back end to attack them. So really sound, play really hard, and that's why they've been able to play really, really consistent.
I'll dispute Spencer a couple of times. I already speaking coach speak. They're one of the worst teams in the league in turnover margin, Fresno State.
Yep.
So they're not that good. They're minus 0.4. And so there's only a couple of teams that are worse. And I was statistically talking about third down conversions. He's talking about they have a really good third down package. But again, they're like 9th or 10th in the league and giving up opponents in third down conversions. So the turnover margin, despite what the coach said, I'm not trying to upstand the coach, but I'm looking at the stats here. He looks at film. I look at stats. Somewhere in the middle is the reality. But there is an option for Maddux Madsen to exploit Fresno State on third and down and maybe some turnovers and taking care of that ball that way.
Spencer Danielson also talked about where Boise State's offense needs to get better before this Fresno State game. And this offense operated by Maddux Madsen. Here's what SD thinks the offense needs to do to get better before these two defenses coming up in Fresno and San Diego State.
We got to make our plays, Mike. That's going to be my message to the team. We got to make our plays. What does that mean? Don't do something outside of what we practice. If I'm supposed to block blank player, I just need you to focus on your fundamentals technique to block it. If I need to make this throw because that's my read, I got to make that throw. I'm supposed to make the catch. Does that make sense? And I know it seems very maybe dumbed down, but that's really where we're at as an offense. If we don't beat ourselves, penalties, missed assignments, I believe we can be explosive. Now we're playing two really good defenses the next 2 weeks. Fresno State, San Diego State. Obviously our focus on Fresno. We know they're going to be really good on defense. They're going to make plays as a defense. They're going to create pressure. They're going to make good tackles. It's a really good defense. It's not going to be easy, right? But we just got to trust our training, make our plays, and that's going to – and in the game, we're going to find explosives, right? If you chase explosive plays, then all of a sudden it's 2nd and 12 against a good defense, then it's 3rd and 13, and all of a sudden you're punting, right? Because, got a lot of respect for what they do defensively. It's nothing we get on Saturday is going to come easy. Like I said, there's not going to be, whoa, someone wasn't in that gap and we just hit a big-time run. They're going to be sound. They're going to cover guys. We got to make plays. And we got to stay in the fight. This is going to be a heavyweight matchup. It's going to be a 4-quarter game. And in all 3 phases, we got to find a way to play our best because that's the team we're playing.
Play your best. That's the team you're playing. A lot of coach speak in there. And I don't know, it's a 17.5-point spread on this, but maybe Fresno going to pack a bigger punch. It feels like Fresno, if there's a game that they love getting up for, it's Boise State on the blue, especially they've had success here.
Yeah, I just don't think that they have the players right now. And they do have the history. They have won 2 games. They're going to come in here and play tough, hard, physical, and defense is the strength. The head coach is a defensive coach, and that's really what he's put his eyes on. Here in about 5 minutes after we get this break, we're gonna introduce you to Fresno State's quarterback. Again, they're going to play Boise State's going to play a new quarterback, and Maddux Madsen's better than Fresno State's quarterback. Boise State's offense is better than Fresno State's offense. I don't know about the 17 points, although I will say this: Vegas has been spot on with Boise State this year. They've been right on the number for at least the last month. And so if Vegas is telling me this is going to be a 15 to 18 point game, I totally believe that. A couple of touchdowns. That's the kind of spread you're looking at. And that would be by far the closest game Boise State's played at home, because they've won 4 straight games at home by an average of like 28, 29 points. 17 points is small compared to that.
Guys, no integrity problems with Boise State, right? They're hanging right on that Vegas point spread and making the odds makers look good.
They do.
They are, man. And I expect, I don't think this is going to be close. I think this is going to be one of those games. Add this to what Prater was saying, where Boise State's winning by between 3 and 4 touchdowns when they play at home. And I'll just tell you this, though. This is a massive test for Maddux Madsen, because these teams play defense at a higher level than the Mountain West teams that Madsen's faced so far.
And that's why I think this is a nice little scheduling spot for Boise State, because you get to play the second best defense in the Mountain West this week. Then you get a bye week, and then you go down to Southern California for the biggest game of the season against the best defense in the conference and one of the best defenses in the country in San Diego State. So I like the way this plays out for them. This should be a nice little tune-up for them at home. Should be able to win comfortably on Saturday. You would hope Madsen can look good without, obviously, Ben Ford and no Chris Marshall this week, and then go into that San Diego State game with confidence, because obviously if they lose that game to San Diego State, you can kiss the college football playoff goodbye, and the conference becomes in jeopardy a little bit as well.
Yeah, what Boise State does want to do, ultimately, and they win these 4 games and they beat whatever team they face in the Mountain West Championship, and they're sitting there, Prater, on Selection Sunday with an 11-2 record, and really forcing the committee to be like, do we want to, do we want to keep Boise State out again, or just kind of go with our old reliable? Their 2 losses were in August and early October. By then, this will be early December, and a lot of times it's how they're playing now. It'll be interesting, but look, Boise State's got a pretty good shot here, Prater, to be 11-2 after the Mountain West Championship game. I'm kind of expecting it. Are you?
No, I am not.
You're expecting another loss at some point.
Yeah, and right now, I'll wait until after the Fresno State game. But at this point, I don't see Boise State going down to San Diego State. Now, I don't know if San Diego State's the real deal, so I need to reserve that a little bit. But the way they've been playing offensively and defensively, I think that the real deal, and that road trip down there is, I don't know if a Boise State San Diego State game fills up that stadium or if it's half empty. That might be kind of weird. We'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
Maddux Madsen, guys, with all of his inconsistencies and all of his issues, he's never had back-to-back games this year where he was in the 50s. He completes 50% of his passes too many times, but he's never done that in back-to-back games. It's usually like a 55 and then he rebounds with a 65. He was at 53% last week. He's also, in his entire career at Boise State, never gone back-to-back games without throwing a touchdown. Did not throw a touchdown last week against Nevada. I expect him to throw a couple. Yeah. I think Fresno State's back end is a little bit more vulnerable than the front end of their defense. So I do expect Maddux Madsen to have a good game. And for him, what is that, 64%, couple of touchdowns, maybe a clean game, no interceptions, but he needs to have the confidence. And you bring up the issues of his health. His health is an issue. His ankle is an issue. If he can go into the bye week with a clear mind, knowing that he played well against Fresno, and then spend 10 days getting that ankle right, he's going to be just about perfect for San Diego State, and he's going to have to be perfect against San Diego State.
Yeah, the best game I think Maddux, for me, ever played was against San Diego State. Last year, he completed 75% of his passes for 307 yards, 4 teeters, no picks. That's a perfect doggy game. Maybe that's even too many attempts.
Yep.
I like Mad Dog throwing between 22 and 27 times. That's it, man.
But look at San Diego State's rush numbers. They're gross.
You have to throw against them.
You have to, because
they eliminate your run.
They're like 2.5 yards per carry at this point. And I think Dylan Riley and company can exploit that a little bit. But to think you're going to run all over San Diego State, that's not going to happen. Maddux Madsen is going to have to come close. That's good to know. keep that context handy. Ball game last year against San Diego State.
Same DC too, Rob Urich.
That's right.
The former Vandal DC. He was there in San
Was
Diego
waiting
State
for the
last
Vandal
year.
plug there.
Thank you, bro. Greg, this is going to be a game we will all watch on Saturday on the Blue in the press box. But the real fun is in the stands, Greg. We got a pair of tickets right now. I think that you want to give away. Is this our text contest winner, Gregor?
That's right. Yeah, we asked at the top of the show, give us an athlete that scares you and why. Love this one from Chris in Boise, guy we talked about on a Friday 5 recently, an all-time Mountain West NFLer. Brian Urlacher scares me. He was a monster of a man who menacingly bounced around the line of scrimmage, bounced behind the line of scrimmage, pre-snap, just chomping at the bit to violently crush the hopes and dreams of whoever got the ball. With his Undertaker-style eye black, I thought he might actually kill our quarterback if he got to him. Love that one.
That's pretty funny. And by the way, the only time Brian Urlacher played Boise State on the Blue,
Brian Urlacher played on the Blue?
he was a tight end and caught a touchdown pass.
Was he in high school?
No, he was here with New Mexico.
God, Urlacher
He
was,
was a full-time tight end, or that was a special play call?
I think he dabbled with some. He wasn't a full-time tight end, but he dabbled.
You know, he was a defensive back.
I did know that.
He wasn't
Yeah.
even a linebacker. Like,
Yeah.
Brian Urlacher was a stud athlete, man,
Yeah,
if he's
yeah.
doing all that at New Mexico. So that's our winner. You said Chris? I'm
Chris in
sorry.
Boise, yeah.
Chris in Boise, you're going to the game. How about this, too? Grab your phone and call the Taco Bell hotline, caller number 15. You will also get 2 tickets to watch this game live on Saturday. Boise State, Fresno State tickets, caller number 15. And let's talk about Fresno State's quarterback. We come back. Who is this Conklin character? KTIK the ticket.
From the Beacon Plumbing Traffic Studio, this is Ticket Traffic.